The Han Nation's ambition is nothing short of biblical. While a special ops team of pioneers introduces pickled vegetables and the art of bartering to the locals, another moves mountains to build a 25-kilometer sea-crossing bridge. But a new threat rises on the steppes. Commander Yuji returns with grave news. A rival tribe is counterfeiting their advanced military tech. The chief, however, is playing a different game entirely. His grand strategy? To turn the entire steppe into a corporate pasture, transforming enemies into employees. Yuji's new mission isn't war, but to supervise the construction of a new capital city on a god-tier, cosmic scale. Yet, this grand vision hits a literal roadblock. The new heavy-duty railway, the Empire's future artery, buckles on its first test run. The steel is too weak. His engineers pinpoint the perfect solution, a miraculous manganese steel, but the only known source of, or is impossibly far away. With the supertrain project shelved, the chief's soft power goes into overdrive. In a remote village, a simple photo album becomes the ultimate weapon of cultural influence, revealing a civilization so dazzlingly advanced it completely shatters the locals' reality. The moment Luo Chong and Tang Yao stepped through their door, the railway construction site in Xin'an County was already a scene of frenetic activity. Clank, clank. The train, that iron behemoth, had become the most capable of haulers. It devoured vast quantities of materials in a single go, freeing up every last ounce of precious manpower to be pushed to the front lines of track laying. It was only the 5th day since construction on the Sinway line had begun, but the gleaming black rails, like a greedy serpent, had already devoured 17 kilometers of ground, their progress marked by a steady kachuk sound. The progress was staggering. 8 cars per trip carried 300 steel rails, enough to lay 15 kilometers of track at a time. Up ahead, the 1,000-odd men preparing the roadbed worked in seamless rhythm, a constant chorus of heave-ho echoing as they pushed the foundation past the 30-kilometer mark. From behind, the track-laying team closed in like a starving wolf. The entire engineering corps, composed of laborers from 32 tons, was being masterfully orchestrated by Luo Chong. The earth diggers, the roadbed levelers, the tampers, and the track layers, 4 grand divisions, rotating posts every 3 days. In Luo Chong's mind, the gears were turning furiously. The Sinway line was not just the Han tribe's first railway. It was the premier training academy for its future railway workers. Everyone had to learn, and everyone had to become proficient. When the railway network began to branch out, these men would be the precious seeds. Wherever they were sown, they would grow into a forest, each a future foreman capable of leading a new crew. Of course, to prevent training from slowing the march, Luo Chong's rotation strategy was devilishly clever. For instance, of the 2 tons laying tracks, only one would be rotated out at a time. When the newcomers arrived, they would first learn the ropes from the veterans. Once they were competent, the seasoned workers would be transferred out, replaced by another batch of greenhorns. This way, every group spent a solid 6 days on the most critical track-laying phase. 6 days, long enough to teach even the dimmest wit how to hammer a nail. In truth, the work required almost no technical skill. It was the most basic type of rail, laid on a dead-straight, flat plane. Flatten the foundation, lay the wooden sleepers, heave the rails on top, and with a few swings of a hammer, bam, 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 drive in the spikes to fix them in place. Job done. It was nothing like the high-speed rail of Luo Chong's past life, with its concrete sleepers, spring steel pads, and even bolts that had to be screwed in for spikes. The mere thought was a headache. While the railway construction flew along, Luo Chong was at home with Tang Yao, packing their luggage and wondering what rare gifts he should bring for his future sister-in-law, Tang Ji. Just then, one of his personal guards burst in like a gust of wind. "Chief, Yufu has returned. He's already reached Luoyang County." "Oh." Luo Chong raised an eyebrow. "Should I have him come here directly, or should we go to him? Tell him to meet me in Hanyang City." After a moment's thought, Luo Chong decided against changing his plans to escort his wife to her family's home. The trip wasn't worth it. Better to have Yufu come to him. "Yes, Chief." The guard departed with his orders. A giant eagle tore through the clouds, carrying the message as it swooped toward Luoyang County. On the shore, having just landed, Yufu received the message, and his heart immediately began to pound like a trapped rabbit. He remembered the old days when the Han tribe was poor and insignificant. He, Yufu, had been the trailblazer, the vanguard of the tribe. With just a handful of men, he had dared to venture everywhere, opening the southern waterways, pushing into the great grasslands, finding the estuary to the sea, and even managing to swindle. No ally with the powerful Tang tribe. His list of merits was long and distinguished. But this year, with a single stroke of his brush, Luo Chong had changed the entire tribe's direction. Accumulate and store. To put it bluntly, it was a 180-degree turn from a strategy of venturing out to hunt to one of staying home to farm. Before, they took whatever they could get: land, seeds, cattle, sheep, people. The more, the better. Now, the chariot of expansion had screeched to a halt. They were beginning to consolidate their territory, hoard grain, and build a self-sustaining internal economy. Yufu knew in his heart this was a brilliant decision. The tribe had reached a stage where it needed to slow down and stabilize. But that didn't stop the panic from rising in his chest. A terrifying thought crept in. Had he suddenly become useless? He and his brother, Yu had the blood of explorers in their veins. Forcing them to settle down and farm was worse than death. Now that the tribe no longer needed to expand its frontiers, what was left for him to do? A man doesn't fear being used. He fears having no value to be used at all. Wouldn't that make him dead weight? He knew Luo Chong wasn't the type to burn a bridge after crossing it, but the thought of an unknown future made his heart feel as if it were being clawed by a cat. Ah, forget it. What's coming will come, Yufu muttered, gritting his teeth. Worst case, I'll tame my nature and ask the chief for a post as a local official. I don't think he'd refuse me, would he? With the grim resolve of a man walking to the gallows, Yufu finally returned to Hanyang County. He remembered this magnificent city when it was nothing more than a barren plot of land. He couldn't help but chuckle at the memory of his greenhorn days, when he had bluffed his way into tricking over 100 tribesmen into joining Luo Chong, all for a broken-down ox cart. The moment he entered the city, Yufu was invited into the chief's home by his personal guards, who made a point of telling him that the chief would receive him in his personal study. Whoa! This treatment sent a wave of warmth through Yufu's heart. The chief's study was the inner sanctum, a place reserved for his most trusted confidants. Anyone not in that circle had to queue at the administration building and wait to be summoned. It seems the chief still recognizes my status as a founding elder. Following the guard through halls and courtyards, Yufu entered the study and, with a thump, dropped to his knees in a deep, formal bow. Yufu pays his respects to the chief. Chief, I have returned. His voice held a barely perceptible tremor. Luo Chong laughed heartily, quickly circling a desk piled high with scrolls. He strode over, grasped Yufu's arm, and personally pulled him to his feet. Enough of that, on your feet. He held on to Yufu, looking him up and down. Look at you. It's been a while, but it seems you've filled out. Life in the South has been treating you well. Yufu's weathered face flushed. He had indeed gotten fatter. In Tawahai County, he was plied with good food and drink every day. It was hard not to gain weight. Thank you for your concern, Chief. I've put on a few pounds from being idle, Yufu said with self-deprecation. Ha ha ha. Luo Chong's laughter grew louder. You've had a long and dusty journey, and I summoned you here the moment you returned. It's been hard on you. Sit. Someone, bring tea and snacks. We'll talk at length today, brother to brother. He led Yufu to the tea table by the window, and a servant girl quickly brought fragrant tea and pastries. As they sat cross-legged on cushions, Luo Chong took a sip of tea before speaking slowly. You just said you were idle? Does that mean the troublesome little tribes around Tawahai County and the Tang tribe have all been dealt with? Yes, Chief. Yufu swallowed a piece of chestnut cake to clear his throat and reported. Right now, in the entire area around the Luyang River estuary, besides us and the Tang tribe, you'd be hard-pressed to find a single living soul, let alone a hostile tribesman. We've practically plucked the place clean. Our strength speaks for itself there, so we hold our heads high. Tawahai County is strong in its own right, and with our ironclad relationship with the Tang tribe and more grain than we can eat, we could attract a host of smaller tribes just by offering amnesty. Those tribes aren't stupid. Siding with us means meat on the table. Opposing us means a beating. They've been especially terrified ever since Deshu led his troops on a friendly visit there last year. So my job was smooth sailing. I just had to show the Han tribe's banner and read out our welfare policies, and they were one step short of hugging my legs and calling me family. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gotten this fat. Yufu couldn't help but joke about his weight again. Luo Chong was amused. Sounds like you had a comfortable time. They fear our strength, so of course they'd try every trick in the book to please you. They're great envoy. It's normal, perfectly normal. Not at all. Yufu quickly waved his hands, a bitter smile on his face. You're right, Chief. They did try to please me, but what fine things could they possibly offer? Nothing more than some dried meat, grain, and wild fruits. Does our Han tribe lack any of that? Besides, I know my limits. I know what I can and cannot accept. The tribe's rules are clear. Even if they claimed the moon was a flatbread they'd baked themselves, I wouldn't give it a second glance. Luo Chong nodded in approval. He believed him. Yufu had come from the core of the Han tribe. What delicacies had he not tasted? He likely wouldn't even look twice at what those small tribes had to offer. As for the feasting and drinking, that could be chalked up to official entertainment. He paused, preparing to ask his next question. Narrator, how does a trailblazing overachiever, during a period of strategic corporate transition, cope with a sudden, forced vacation and happiness pounds? Yufu, heart panicking, waistline expanding. Chief, please love me again. Awaiting reply online, it's urgent. Since things in the south have calmed down, have you considered what you want to do now that you're back? Luo Chong asked, crossing one leg over the other. His tone was as casual as if he were chatting with a neighbor. I don't have a specific role lined up for you at the moment. If you have any ideas, feel free to share them. I'll be your sounding board. Yufu froze, his thoughts grinding to a halt. No arrangements? The chief had summoned him back with such urgency, yet he didn't even have a plan for him? Gods above, could this be a test? Is the chief trying to gauge my vision, my ambition? A jolt of panic shot through him. The words he had prepared, ask for a post as a local official to live out my days in peace, were suddenly lodged in his throat, refusing to surface. A fine sweat beaded on his forehead. Seeing Luo Chong merely sipping his tea with an encouraging smile, his expression saying, "Go on, I'm listening." Yufu had no choice but to take a leap of faith and tentatively float an idea. Chief, what if you let me go exploring again? East or west, either is fine by me. He swallowed hard, scrambling to justify his audacious suggestion. Look, we've secured the main artery from Cheongzhou in the south to the camp of the Forgotten People in the north. But to the east and west, we're still completely in the dark. Our tribe isn't lacking for anything right now. We have enough grain to use as pillows and more minerals than we can count. But if we want to ascend to the next level, we need people, a constant influx of them. Relying on our own birth rate will take an eternity. I was thinking, since we found the Yujiang clan of several thousand east of the Luyang River, could there be a Lijiang clan or a Wangjiang clan further east? And our Rumeng Water Valley to the west. We haven't ventured there in years. Who knows what new neighbors might have appeared? The more Yufu spoke, the more animated he became, as if he had returned to those passionate days of riding an ox and roaming the world. Luo Chong's eyes lit up, his fingers tapping lightly on his teacup. That's it. Population. This man truly was a born trailblazer. He had perfectly articulated the tribe's greatest growing pain. The Han tribe was currently like a youth who had shot up in height too quickly. Its skeleton was fully formed, but it lacked the flesh to fill out its frame. It desperately needed a massive population to give substance to its colossal structure. But there was only one Yufu. East or west, he could only choose one direction. The west. An image of endless, rolling mountains appeared in Luo Chong's mind. The scenery was beautiful, perfect for a holiday retreat, but finding a large population there would be difficult. That kind of terrain could, at best, support a few scattered hunting tribes that lived off the mountains. The spark of agricultural civilization could never catch fire there. Wasn't the wild game in the mountains more appealing than tilling the soil? Therefore, go east, Luo Chong declared, his voice leaving no room for argument. The east. The unknown region that began at the Luyang River and stretched all the way to that mysterious coastline. Although Luo Chong had never been there, the existence of the Tang tribe and the Yujiang clan led him to deduce that the area was a network of dense waterways and vast plains, a perfect breeding ground for large tribes. If it could nurture the Yujiang clan of several thousand, it could certainly nurture a second and a third. If he could just entice, absorb these tribes, the Han tribe's growth rate would skyrocket. Good, Luo Chong said, his mind made up. It's settled. You will continue to explore eastward. He took a sip of tea, his gaze sharpening. Start from the eastern shore of the Yunming Marsh in Weishan County, or the outskirts of Dongxing County, or even from the old territory of the Yujiang clan, and push east. I want you to thoroughly scour that entire region. However, Luo Chong's tone shifted. Let's be clear on the terms of this mission. It is different from your previous ones. Yufu immediately sat ramrod straight, taking out a pen and paper with a focus more intense than any scholar. First, your primary objective is exploration, not recruitment. I will assign you more manpower for this task. Second, I am giving you a treasure, a camera. You must take it with you. This device is an invaluable tool for reconnaissance. If you encounter anything you are unsure about, take a photograph and send it back to me. Third, map everything. Water routes, land routes, which rivers are navigable, which paths can handle carts, and which locations are suitable for building cities. Document it all with precision. Fourth, for any new plants, animals, or minerals you find, bring back samples if you can. If you cannot, take photographs and write detailed descriptions. I want a comprehensive, illustrated report upon your return. Luo Chong listed his instructions one by one. The pen in Yufu's hand flew across the paper with a flurry of strokes, as if he meant to carve every word into his brain. A camera. Gods, I'm even getting a camera? This exploration package is beyond lavish. Oh, right, Luo Chong added, as if remembering something. One last thing, and it is the most important. The tip of Yufu's pen froze on the paper. This time, do not be in a hurry to bring people back. I will give you plenty of grain seeds. Every time you reach a new place, sow a handful. If you encounter local tribes, give the seeds to them. Huh? Yufu was baffled. He couldn't comprehend the strategy. Chief what? A mysterious smile touched the corners of Luo Chong's lips as he slowly uttered 4 words. This is called sowing civilization. You might not find any major players on this journey. You wouldn't be interested in those small tribes of a few dozen or 100 people, and I find them too troublesome to integrate. Instead of wasting effort bringing them back, it's better to spread our agricultural techniques. As long as they're willing to learn, some of those tribes will eventually grow. Once they fatten themselves up, it won't be too late for us to go and harvest. Click. Yufu understood instantly. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. The chief felt that cultivating his own fields was too slow, so he was preparing to create a wild garden outside, letting others raise the crops for him. Once the harvest looked plentiful, he would go over with a scythe and incorporate them. As for the possibility of the crops growing too strong and turning on the farmer who came to reap them, don't be ridiculous. The farmer's scythe was only getting sharper by the day. At noon, Luo Chong had Yufu stay for a simple meal. After lunch, as Yufu was taking his leave, Luo Chong clapped him on the shoulder. Don't be in a rush to leave. You've been gone for so long. Take some time to walk around the 8 counties of Hanyang. Many things are not as they were when you left. You can skip the other places, but the railway construction site in Xing'an County is a must-see. Go take a look at that iron behemoth, chat with Lin Fei and De Li, and you'll understand the nature of the game this time around. Yes, Chief. I will remember your teachings. Yufu gave a solemn bow, turned, and strode away, the flame that had long been extinguished in his heart now roaring back to life. Narrator. From a happy, fat homebody with nothing to do, to Trailblazer 2.0, and he's back in the game. Yufu receives a deluxe exploration package, but his KPIs are the strangest ever. No recruiting allowed, but spreading kindness is encouraged. Luo Chong's long-term strategy is a masterstroke of open conspiracy, treating the entire world as his personal experimental farm. Yufu, my greatsword is already thirsty. Just you watch, Chief. A stroll to the railway construction site and a boastful chat with De Li and the others would be all it took for Yufu to grasp the grand vision Luo Chong had painted for the county governors during the New Year festival. Slipping a few railway surveyors, those technical specialists, into his eastward expedition team would then be child's play. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, it was late April of the first year of the Great Mandate. From south to north, every county and commandery of the Han tribe operated like a well-oiled machine. The first season's grain was harvested, dried, and stored in one fluid motion. The seedlings for the second season already blanketed the fields in a vibrant green. Far across the sea, in the 6 commanderies of Cheongzhou, a dramatic paddy field revolution was underway. In the first batch of converted paddy fields, immigrants from the Central Plains taught the local people, hand in hand, how to cultivate seeds and transplant seedlings. This is far more tiring than planting corn. The locals stood in knee-deep mud, backs bent, planting seedlings one by one until their spines felt they would snap. But the thought of that fragrant white rice, 100 times more delicious than dry, hard corn cobs, made the hardship seem insignificant. If the noble people of the Han tribe can endure this, how can we islanders, who battle wind and wave every day, be cowards? With such powerful examples, the rice planting project proceeded with exceptional smoothness. Once the seedlings were planted and had survived the most difficult transplanting shock, the locals made another discovery. Heavens above, planting rice might be troublesome, but once it was planted, it practically took care of itself. There was no need for subsequent management. Weeding? Simple. Just flood the fields with more water, and the weeds would drown themselves with a gurgle. Even more ingeniously, releasing frogs, loaches, and small fish into the paddies not only provided extra dishes for their meals, but also automatically eliminated pests. The frogs were the aerial patrol, specializing in all sorts of flying insects. The fish and loaches were the underwater custodians, not even letting the fallen pollen from the rice plants go to waste. Their droppings even fertilized the paddies. It was a complete ecological cycle, a gift package with multiple benefits. Of course, this advanced fish-in-the-paddy model was still in the experimental stage. Widespread implementation would have to wait. Sitting in his study, Luo Chong looked at the first quarter work reports flying in like snowflakes from all corners of his domain and nodded with satisfaction. Everything was under control, especially in the 6 commanderies of Cheongzhou. As long as the local people's mindset shifted, that once bamboo island would soon become a true rice granary. When that time came, who would remember the Exian tribe? They would only remember that it was the Han tribe's Cheongzhou Island, a land covered in rice paddies. At the end of April, another piece of good news arrived from Weishan County, flying to Luo Chong's desk as if on wings. The Sinway Railway's northern line was open for traffic. This single track, stretching 176 kilometers from Xing'an County, passing through Qianzhou, Qiming, and Iza counties, and finally reaching the Weishan County Pier, was now fully operational. Now, transporting goods from Xing'an County to the Weishan County Pier with a steady clank was no longer a problem. It was just that the return trip required a bit of a clever maneuver. The locomotive had to be driven onto a special, man-powered turntable, spun like a top to face the other direction, and then rehitched to the carriages before it could return on the same track. Though a bit cumbersome, for a train that was only half a man's height, practicality was all that mattered. The moment Luo Chong received the news, a series of commands were issued. Dongxin County, ship several boatloads of coal over. Huxin Island coking plant. Coke, get it here fast. Luyang County, Xian, get your newly launched flying fish boat to the Weishan County Pier. He was going to personally conduct an extreme test. He would see how long it would take for this little train to run a full load of steel bars and cement over, and then a full load of coal and coke back. He would see just how many times more efficient it was compared to the old horse-drawn carts. On the 8th day of the 4th month of the first year of the Great Mandate, the humble train station in Xing'an County was more lively today than on New Year's Day. The governors of the 8 Hanyang commanderies had all gathered. Yufu, having just received his new mission and preparing for a long journey, was also here. Tang Yao, who was preparing to return to her family, was pulled along by Luo Chong to witness this historic moment. Lin Fei and his researchers from the Power Research Institute were the stars of today's show. The Huxin Island Comprehensive Research Institute and the Luyang County Shipyard also sent representatives to observe the ceremony. The brand new locomotive was adorned with a large red flower, its body polished to a high sheen, looking like a groom on his way to his wedding. Several photographers with an array of cameras flashed incessantly, afraid to miss any exciting moment. Luo Chong became the busiest subject for the photographers. First, he stood in a line with the 8 governors in front of the locomotive for a leadership inspection photo. Next, he took a group photo with the heroes from the Power Research Institute, the workers and researchers whose names were destined to be written into the annals of history. Then came Yufu, various representatives, and finally, Luo Chong pulled Tang Yao, the Tang tribe friendship ambassador, for a family photo with everyone. This was just the prelude. Once the train started moving, there would be several more rounds of posed photos inside the carriages. After the photographs, Luo Chong stood on a temporarily built wooden platform, cleared his throat, and began an impromptu speech. Compatriots, today, I am very happy. From the project's inception in the autumn of the year before last, to today, our steam engine, our striver locomotive, has finally produced something presentable. This great machine behind me, and this 176-kilometer-long northern line of the Sinway Railway are the best proof. Whoosh! Thunderous applause erupted from below the stage. The governors had already witnessed the power of the model train during the New Year's festival, and now their faces were flushed with excitement. Those in research understood even better what this iron behemoth signified. Today, we are not here for theory. We are going to conduct a real-world transportation experiment. Luo Chong's voice was firm and resonant. This train will carry 8 flat cars of steel bars, 2 carriages of engineering machinery, 6 carriages of cement, 3 passenger carriages, and 1 dining car, for a total of 20 carriages. It will depart from here and go straight to the Weishan County Pier. The entire journey is 176 kilometers, with no stops. It is expected to take 4 hours. I will use a newly developed mechanical clock to time it. Let's see if it can meet the standard. All right, all aboard. As soon as he finished speaking, Luo Chong was the first to board the second-to-last carriage. Tang Yao followed closely, and the others filed in after her. Several governors followed Luo Chong into a carriage. only to be dumbfounded upon entering. This carriage was cleaner than their own faces. It was just a long, empty, rectangular metal box, completely bare, with nothing inside. Heavens! Was this train a bit too Spartan? Were they supposed to sit on the floor? As everyone stared at each other, with even Tang Yao unsure of where to stand, Luo Chong smiled and patted the inner wall of the carriage. Sit. What are you all standing around for? He walked to the middle of the carriage and reached out to flip down a long wooden board from the wall. Here, this is a chair. He pulled Tang Yao to sit down first. It was only then that everyone understood and followed suit. Wow, this design is clever. Jiandun, the governor of my county, marveled. The chairs can be hidden in the wall. If the chief hadn't shown us, I would have never discovered it. Narrator. From blueprint to reality, from model to behemoth. The Han tribe's industrial revolution express is officially departing. Luo Chong, the master of grand promises, is making good on his word, leaving everyone stunned. But isn't this folding seat design a bit too advanced? It feels like you could pull out a small stool and a bucket of instant noodles from it in the next second. Hey buddy, want some peanuts, melon seeds, or bottled water? A proud smile touched Lin Fei's lips at the praise for his work. He straightened his back and began to explain. This design is another of our chief's brilliant ideas. Our Han tribe has a small population, so we don't usually have many people taking the train. To prevent the carriages from gathering dust, the chief devised this clever, dual-use system for passengers and cargo. Look, he demonstrated. You fold the chairs up against the wall, and it instantly transforms into a large cargo hold. When you need to transport people, you just snap the chairs down. One car, two uses, with absolutely no waste. What do you think? Isn't it amazing? Incredible. Jiandun was stunned. So it's the chief's handiwork again. His mind must operate on another plane entirely. We couldn't catch up to his thinking even on horseback. When Nong and Ao Fei, who were in the same carriage, nodded in profound agreement. In their research institutes, 8 out of 10 new inventions bore Luo Chong's shadow. Every time they presented a new device, Luo Chong, as if possessing a third eye, could spot the problem at a glance. The improvement suggestions he casually made would, upon testing, yield immediate and remarkable results. It was, they all agreed, simply uncanny. Just as everyone had found their seats, the commander's flag on the platform swung down sharply, and the piercing sound of a whistle cut through the morning tranquility. The next second, whoa, 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 the deafening shriek of the steam whistle, like a waking beast, let out a resounding roar. The driver yanked open the valve. Scorching steam hissed into the cylinder, pushing the huge pistons and connecting rods, which began to work with a heavy chug-chug sound. The train, after a violent jolt that shuddered through the carriages, finally, slowly, began to move forward. Luo Chong glanced at the mechanical clock hanging at the head of the carriage. The hands pointed exactly to 8 o'clock. 176 kilometers. According to the theoretical calculations of the technical experts at the Research Institute, the train would travel at a rate of 50 li per hour, which converted to about 25 kilometers per hour. That meant it would take a full 8 hours. Gods above, Luo Chong thought. This speed is barely faster than a child's toy. However, its hauling capacity was undeniable. 20 carriages, steel bars, cement, engineering machinery. If this were a convoy of horse-drawn carts, how many animals would it take to pull this much weight? And could they possibly maintain this speed? Consider just the 6-meter-long steel bars. What kind of cart could even fit them? A single train car, however, was 12 meters long. It handled the load with ease. To make the comparison more intuitive, Luo Chong had also arranged for a convoy of horse-drawn carts transporting iron ingots, as well as dozens of his personal guards on tall horses, to race alongside the train. As soon as the train started, the guards shouted, "Giddy up," and their warhorses shot forward, disappearing in a cloud of dust in the blink of an eye. The convoy of carts was initially ahead of the train, but once the locomotive picked up its chug-chug rhythm, the carts were quickly left far behind. Inside the carriage, everyone was chattering with excitement, like a group of villagers on their first visit to a great city. Clack, 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 clack. The sound of the wheels striking the rail joints was rhythmic and loud. But to the fascinated passengers, it wasn't noise at all. They thought this metallic clang was the most beautiful music in the world. Why do you think the train makes that clanging sound when it runs? Could something have been installed incorrectly? A representative from the Luoyang County shipyard whispered. Not at all. A craftsman from the Power Research Institute seated next to him immediately shook his head. That is the sound of the wheels making intimate contact with the rails. When iron strikes iron, how can there be no sound? That's right, another researcher added. Our rails are 100 meters long. Every time you hear a clang, It means we've traveled another 100 meters. That should tell you how fast we're moving. Oh, 100 meters. My heavens. That fast. A wave of realization washed over the passengers. Many immediately closed their eyes and began to silently calculate the speed with their breathing. Inhale, clang. Exhale, clang. 2 breaths, 100 meters. The speed was incredible. However, amidst the excitement, Luo Chong leaned against the window, his eyes closed and his brow slightly furrowed. Tang Yao leaned over curiously. You seem unhappy. Are you not satisfied? It's slow, Luo Chong said without lifting an eyelid. Still slow. Tang Yao was astonished. Look at how much this train is pulling. And look outside, it's practically flying. And you still call it slow? That cement was powdered stone. Those steel bars were solid iron. The iron in this one train alone was more than her Tang tribe could smelt in several years. To pull such a heavy load and run faster than a warhorse, and he still called it slow? She truly could not understand this man's way of thinking. It's nothing, Luo Chong said dismissively. What could he say? He couldn't very well explain that he used to take high-speed rail that could cross from the capital to a coastal metropolis in 6 hours. This contraption couldn't even cover 200 kilometers in 8. What was this if not a snail's pace? Even the lumbering commuter trains of his childhood had been faster than this. Seeing that she couldn't get a straight answer, Tang Yao simply stuck her head out the window, feeling the wind rush past her face. After a while, she turned back, her sparkling eyes fixed on Luo Chong. Luo Chong, when we get married, will you build a railway in our territory too? Of course, Luo Chong answered without a moment's hesitation. The rubber, iron, ore, and stone in your territory are all hidden deep in the mountains. Without this little train, how would we transport them out? Besides, he continued, our research institute recently discovered that to build heavy-duty railways capable of pulling even heavier loads, we must use the iron ore from your territory. If it weren't for the lack of coal there, I would have already built a second steel base on your lands. At that, Luo Chong's eyes snapped open. That's right, coal. He quickly scanned the carriage, his eyes locking onto Yufu, who was standing by the door, admiring the scenery. Yufu, come here. Yufu came over at his call. Chief, your orders? Have you chosen a starting point for your eastward expedition? Not yet. Then don't bother choosing. Luo Chong waved his hand, his tone leaving no room for argument. Start from the Tang tribe's territory. With the Tang tribe as the center, I want you to spread out in a fan shape to the northeast, east, and southeast. I want you to find me the closest coal mine to the Tang tribe. Narrator. While everyone is cheering for the 25 kilometers per hour high-speed rail, Luo Chong from the 21st century is having a moment of silent despair. This must be the ultimate humble brag that comes with a dimensional downgrade. But hey, an unsatisfied customer drives progress. It's precisely this never-ending pickiness that pushes the wheels of civilization forward with a clack-clack-clatter. Yufu, roger that. New mission acquired. Time to go dig for coal. If we cannot find a coal mine near the Tang tribe, Luo Chong began, his tone exceptionally grave, and we still wish to make steel in the south, we will have no choice but to ship coke, boat by boat, all the way from Hushin Island in the north. The distance, the cost, the time, the sheer thought is overwhelming. Each word was a hammer blow, driving the point into Yufu's heart. Therefore, finding a coal mine as close to the Tang tribe as possible is your most important, most critical objective on this mission. It is your only objective. Yufu instantly shed his usual casual demeanor. He straightened his back, his gaze as sharp as an eagle's, and replied with crisp finality. Yes, Chief. I understand. The primary target is the coal mine. Though Luo Chong and Yufu had not spoken loudly, everyone present was sharp-witted. How could they not have overheard? A jolt went through them, followed by immediate understanding. Whether the expedition succeeded or not had little to do with them directly. What was important was the world-shaking revelation they had just gleaned from those few sentences. The Tang tribe was to be absorbed into the Han tribe. A second steel center was to be established in the south, built upon the foundation of the Tang tribe's iron ore. Good heavens! The news was a thunderclap on a clear day, leaving everyone's ears ringing. They glanced at the sweetly smiling Tang Yao beside the chief, and the answer was staring them in the face. A peaceful merger. This was the deal of a lifetime. Without deploying a single soldier or spending a single grain of rice, the greatest effort being some infrastructure work, they would gain a territory of 8 commanderies and a population of over 80,000. The Han tribe was poised for a monumental leap forward. After the wave of emotion passed, their thoughts returned to the clanking, clattering train they were on. With a contraption like this, where in the world could they not go? Woo! The locomotive let out another roar, dragging the steel dragon of tens of thousands of tons forward with immense effort. 20 minutes later, the personal guard cavalry, who had shot off like bolts at the start and left the train in their dust, reappeared outside the windows. Now, however, they were a dejected bunch. Their war horses, listless and with ears drooping, could only manage a slow trot. The long, high-speed gallop had completely exhausted their stamina. To run any more would be to risk their mounts dropping dead. The train, in contrast, continued to clatter along, clackety-clack, at a steady, unhurried pace of over 20 kilometers per hour. This steel dragon seemed tireless. As long as it was fed coal and water, it could run until the end of time. Of course, the end of time was an impossibility, because the railway was only a little over 100 kilometers long. When it reached the station, it would have to stop. An hour passed. In the locomotive's cab, the driver was surprisingly at ease. The machine had no steering wheel. It followed the tracks on its own. His only job was to keep his eyes peeled for any obstacles ahead. Just a moment ago, a herd of wild antelope had tried to cross the tracks, only to be scared witless by a blast of the woo-woo, whistle, and scatter in a panic. Occasionally, he would adjust the speed based on the track conditions. On a straightaway, it was full throttle. Accelerate, accelerate. At the sight of a curve, he would quickly ease off the throttle to slow down. The fireman next to him, however, had the more physical job, shoveling coal into the boiler, one scoop after another. The initial load of 2,000 caddies of coal was enough for the striver to run a full 500 kilometers fully loaded. By calculation, that was only 400 caddies of coal per 100 kilometers. For bags of coal to pull tens of thousands of tons of cargo for 100 kilometers, the cost-effectiveness was out of this world. Clackety-clackety-clack. 2 hours passed, and the people on board were getting restless. It was boring. There were no diversions in this era. Being cooped up in a sealed carriage, staring at each other, was sheer torture. Just then, Luo Chong and Tang Yao became the center of attention. Like a magician, Tang Yao produced an exquisite wooden box. Upon opening, it revealed black and white ceramic pieces. The box itself was a game board. The two of them propped the board on their laps and began to play a game of gamoku, their pieces clicking and clacking on the wood. Several nearby commandery governors watched with wide eyes, their hearts filled with regret. Why on earth hadn't they thought to bring a game board? Seeing their longing expressions, Luo Chong felt a pang of sympathy and instructed Lin Fei. Lin Fei, go to the dining car in the back and see if you can get everyone some tea, pastries, or fruit. If not, even some peanuts will do. Hey, that's a fine idea. Yunji's face lit up at the suggestion. Roasted peanuts in the shell would be best. I just love shelling them. Lin Fei acknowledged the order, walked to the carriage door, grabbed the outer railing, and with a swing and a leap, vaulted like a nimble monkey to the doorway of the dining car behind them. To the uninitiated, his slick moves made it look as if a band of railway guerrillas had come to raid the train. This was another small design flaw. They were, after all, dual-purpose passenger freight cars. Aside from the folding chairs, the interiors were bare, with no internal corridors connecting them. If one wanted to go to the next car, a parkour performance was required. Narrator: when primitive steampunk meets a boring long-distance journey, gamoku and peanuts are the ultimate solution for killing time. Luo Chong: I anticipated your boredom. Lin Fei: as long as I'm agile, there are no walls between cars. I just wonder if this greenskin train journey comes with a service attendant pushing a little cart selling instant noodles and sausages. There were no restrooms between the cars, nor were there any connecting corridors. To get to the next car was an impossibility. Unless, that is, you could scale walls and leap across rooftops, clinging to the exterior railings like an acrobat and vaulting from one car's doorway to the next. Fortunately, the train wasn't moving too fast, so the maneuver wasn't exceedingly dangerous. Before long, Lin Fei returned, carrying a massive, 8-tiered food container, looking for all the world like a food delivery man. The container was a treasure trove of snacks: peanuts, roasted soybeans, dried meat, candied fruits, persimmon cakes. It had everything. The group pounced on it like a pack of hungry wolves, scrambling to divide the spoils. Luo Chong asked only for a cup of plain tea. Once everyone had their snacks, Lin Fei stood at the doorway again and hollered toward the dining car behind them. A cook immediately appeared at the dining car's doorway. Clinging to the railing with one hand and holding a large tin thermos in the other, he passed it across the gap to Lin Fei. In the howling wind, they completed a heart-stopping handover of the hot water thermos. Good heavens! Getting a sip of hot water was more difficult than climbing to the sky. And so, like a diligent postman, Lin Fei relayed the snacks and hot water to the two carriages ahead of them, person by person. When noon arrived, Stomachs began to grumble again. There was no other way. Lin Fei had to once again perform his train-hopping feat, delivering meals car by car. Only after everyone had their food did he wipe the sweat from his brow, sidle up to Luo Chong, and offer a suggestion. Chief, this is simply too much hassle. We must modify these passenger freight cars. We have to install a door in the front and back walls. Even if it's not for people to pass through, it would make handing things over much easier. Even a sliding window would work, so it doesn't swing all over the place. That's an excellent suggestion. Luo Chong nodded. You handle it. No need to ask me about minor details like this. This is a trial run. We find problems, we solve them. We need to make the changes now, before they go into mass production. It will be much harder to change them later. After lunch, a new problem arose, using the restroom. The carriages in front were full of men. The bolder ones simply stood at the doorway and relieved themselves outside. The world was vast, and there wasn't a soul in sight. But Luo Chong's car had Tang Yao in it. How could they dare to be so brazen? They could only hold it in. Those who couldn't hold it any longer had to brace themselves and hop the train to visit the cars up front. At 1:30 in the afternoon, the train woo-wooed as it passed the temporary station at Isa County, but the driver didn't stop, speeding right through. The common folk along the railway had long since calculated the time, bringing their families to watch the great iron horse. As the steel behemoth, spewing white smoke, roared past, a thunderous cheer erupted from the crowd. The driver sounded the whistle, both as a warning and a salute. Luo Chong and the other dignitaries also stood at the doorways and windows, waving to the people along the route. Click. A.O. Fei, personally operating the camera he had invented, captured a profile shot of Luo Chong waving. This historic moment was frozen in time forever. As the train moved past Isa County, neat paddy fields began to appear alongside the tracks. Still, there were no villages in sight. The population of the Han tribe was mostly concentrated in the cities, leaving vast tracts of land outside them undeveloped. Luo Chong called over several commandery governors and corps members. Come, everyone. You've all seen and experienced the benefits of the train. Let's figure out right now just how many of these we're going to need in the short term. Lin Fei spoke first. Chief, we have enough rails. It's the locomotives, they're semi-handmade, and it's too slow. I estimate that, at best, it will take another month and a half to build the next one. Luo Chong listened and shook his head. Too slow. He held up his fingers and began to calculate. The Xinwei line needs at least 2. The 3 mining areas, Xing'an County, Dongxing County, and the 8 Treasures Mountain copper mine, need at least 5. For the south, from Tuahai County to the capital, 2, and 1 for use within the capital itself. For the Tang tribe, from Panshir County to Tang City, at least 1. That adds up to 11 trains. Lin Fei, Luo Chong looked at him. The Research Institute will send people to the locomotive factory to be apprentices. While you're building the Xinwei Lines number 2, every single workstation must train an apprentice. Narrator, from delivering water and food to going to the restroom, a seemingly successful trial run exposed a heap of laughable design flaws. Luo Chong, our product manager, gets to work on the spot, approving design changes. However, as he counts on his fingers to calculate the demand for trains, he discovers the biggest bottleneck isn't technology, but production capacity. It seems the Han tribe's industrial revolution will have to begin by first founding its own vocational technical college. Once those 5 trains for the mines are running, your workshops must be capable of producing 2 locomotives simultaneously within a month and a half. And we cannot afford to lose a single one of these master craftsmen. Even if there are no new trains to build, keep them on the payroll for maintenance. We will recruit from the schools later to create a steady pipeline of talent. Lin Fei nodded, the abacus in his mind clacking away furiously. These master craftsmen would be worth their weight in gold. Sending them to various stations as technical advisors would be a secure, high-paying job for life. But he still raised a practical issue. Chief, training apprentices is no problem, but the key is, we don't have the people. This work requires a grasp of mechanics and a certain aptitude. You can't just grab anyone off the street and teach them. That's easily solved. Luo Chong waved a dismissive hand. Go discuss it with Dali. We'll tap into our internal potential. Pick the skilled and the young and transfer them directly. As for the positions they leave vacant. Luo Chong gave a mysterious smile. Soon, you won't be worried about a lack of people. You'll be worried about how to place them all. What do you mean? Dali was completely baffled. What do you think I mean? Luo Chong shot him an exasperated look. Once the train is running, all the horse-drawn carriage teams that used to work this route will be out of a job, won't they? We can't have all those drivers go home to farm. We select a portion of them for the factories, and the problem is solved. A brief meeting, and the train production plan for the foreseeable future was set. 11 trains were an absolute necessity. They had to be completed. On the next leg of the journey, the number of people lining the railway grew. Every time they reached a county seat, the streets were empty as people thronged to the tracks to welcome them. Luo Chong and his entourage stood enthusiastically in the open doorways of the train, waving in acknowledgement. This trial run was both a technological demonstration and a grand political tour, letting everyone know that the chief had once again brought them something wonderful. Chief, look, we've reached Weishan County. Lin Fei leaned halfway out of the car, shouting with excitement. Luo Chong stuck his head out. Sure enough, he saw the tall city walls of Weishan County. But the timing wasn't right. He turned to look at the mechanical clock inside the car. It was only 2:20 in the afternoon. They had departed at 8 in the morning. Had it only been a little over 6 hours? Woo-hoo! The whistle blew a long blast as the train slowly pulled into the station, coming to a steady stop at precisely 2:28. Luo Chong did some quick mental math. 176 kilometers in 6.5 hours. The average speed was an astonishing 28 kilometers per hour. My heavens! 56 li per hour. Much faster than expected. Luo Chong himself was somewhat amazed. Yes, Chief. Lin Fei's face was flushed with excitement. The whole way, I was just praying it wouldn't break down. I never imagined it would give us a perfect score. Excellent. Luo Chong was greatly pleased and made a decision on the spot. All personnel involved in the project are to be credited with a great merit. They will be considered for noble titles at the end of the year. The workers at the steel mill and locomotive factory will receive an extra half-month of salary. Those who complete the apprentice training task on time will get another full month's salary and another merit. Thank you, Chief. De Li and Lin Fei bowed deeply, their voices thick with emotion. At the docks, workers bustled about, unloading cargo. The steel bars and cement were to be loaded onto ships and transported to the cross-sea bridge construction site. Tang Yao, Yufu, and the dozen or so artisans brought by Moxin were about to board the little flying fish speedboat and head south. Yufu bore the heavy responsibility of finding a coal mine, a task that would determine the future of the Han tribe's second steel base and, more importantly, whether they could produce the harder manganese steel needed for heavy-duty railways capable of carrying greater loads. On the deck, Luo Chong was bidding a reluctant farewell to Tang Yao. Don't worry, it won't be long. Once the palace is built, I'll move in. When that time comes, if you want to go home, I'll accompany you on the train, all the way to your doorstep. Tang Yao's eyes welled with tears as she looked at him earnestly. Once I inherit the title of chieftain, I will marry you. Luo Chong said nothing, but simply pulled her into a tight embrace. The boat slowly pulled away from the port, and the two waved farewell across the ever-widening distance. Standing on the pier, Luo Chong watched the distant sail and thought to himself, the next time we meet, what province shall the Tang tribe be renamed to? Narrator. The 28 kilometers per hour high-speed rail exceeds all expectations and arrives ahead of schedule. Luo Chong is both surprised by the technological breakthrough and already skillfully dangling the new carrot of taking the train home to visit family. The looming shadow of unemployment is deftly transformed into a driving force for industrial upgrading. Tang Yao heads south with a marriage pact and a mission. Yufu ventures east with the hope of finding coal. An era, to the rumbling sound of clackety-clack, slowly unfurls a new chapter. Cast off. With a single command, the fleet set sail. The little flying fish shot out ahead, its blade-like bow slicing through the water with a swish. The streamlined hull, like a drawn sword, skimmed across the surface, propelled by 5 massive sails. Its speed was outrageous, as if it were truly a fish flying across the water's surface. A dozen or so minutes later, the fleet rounded a river bend, and the ordinary cargo ships behind could no longer see a trace of the little flying fish. The passengers on board, including the seasoned crew, were all dumbfounded. Good heavens! Had this ship taken stimulants? What was originally a day's journey from Weishan County to Luoyang County, it completed in just a few hours. What was originally a 3-day trip from Luoyang County to Dongxing County, it finished in less than a day. Even Mo Xin and his band of technical experts, who worked with ship models day in and day out, stared with wide eyes. They knew every type of Han tribe ship like the back of their hands, but none could compare in speed to this little flying fish. And so, traveling day and night, on the evening of the 11th day, the little flying fish finally arrived at the docks of Tohai County. The accompanying photographer immediately leaped off the boat and began snapping away. Click, clack, click, at the docks, the ship, and the distant city of the Tang tribe. These photographs were evidence. He even specifically found Shu, the governor of Tuahai County, had him personally write down the arrival time and then stamped it with the official seal. Double insurance. The evidence was ironclad. 11 days, from the north to the south. If this news got out, it would be absolutely explosive. When Shu heard the news, his jaw nearly hit the floor. He was a high-ranking official with a keen political sense. He knew perfectly well that this terrifying transport capability meant the chief's plans for developing the South were about to accelerate dramatically. After a round of pleasantries, Tang Yao rushed back to Tang City overnight. Yufu remained in Tuahai County to recruit men and horses, preparing for his grand coal-digging enterprise. The families of Mo Xian's group of artisans were also properly settled by Shu, given houses and land, allowing them to establish new homes here. On the 3rd day of the 5th month, all preparations were complete. 20 Jinwu Guard cavalrymen escorted Mo Xian, his dozen or so artisans, and the enormous sand table model of the palace, heading grandly towards the capital construction site. On the way, Mo Xian curiously asked a cavalryman beside him, "Young man, when was this road built?" "Huh, master craftsman, you call this a road?" The young cavalryman grinned. "This is just the path we trampled out while escorting laborers. But I'll tell you what, it's flat land all the way from here to the capital. Building a proper road would be a piece of cake." As they were chatting, a scout who had been sent ahead suddenly galloped back, shouting a warning. "Alert! Unidentified persons hunting 3 li ahead. Suspected to be wild men." Wild men. Mo Xian and the others were stunned. There are other tribes in this area? Who knows where they popped up from? The platoon leader in charge immediately asked, "How many? What's the situation?" "Sir, a dozen or so adult males, wearing animal skins around their waists, are hunting wild goats by the river. Not far off, there's a large group of people, men, women, old and young. It looks like an entire tribe on the move." An entire tribe on the move? The platoon leader's eyes lit up. "My goodness, this is a gift from heaven. Brothers, our chance to earn merit has arrived. When encountering a homeless, wild tribe like this, why be polite? They had to be tricked. No, recruited into the Han tribe." He spurred his horse over to Mo Xian. "Master Mo, we've spotted a migrating tribe of several hundred people up ahead. We're preparing to engage in a friendly exchange. Would you care to join us and see the sights?" Mo Xian laughed heartily, patting the sword at his waist. "I'd be delighted. A little excitement would be welcome." "Good. Let's move out." Meanwhile, the dozen or so wild men hunting by the river had also spotted the 2 Jinwu guards on their tall horses, roaming in the distance. "Wah, what are those people? How can they ride on beasts?" a young hunter asked, his voice trembling. "I don't know." The hunt leader's face was grim. "Let's go. We shouldn't stay here." Narrator. While the little flying fish shatters shipping records with dolphin-like speed, the Jinwu Guard's capital construction escort team unexpectedly stumbles upon a wild experience pack. On one hand, the infrastructure fanatics. On the other, the pioneering vanguards. They must seize both opportunities with equal fervor. The only question is whether this friendly exchange will turn into a one-sided, dimensional beatdown. Where can we run? Back to the camp? No, that will lead them straight to the others. We split up. Whoever gets through, tell the elder to hide everyone, quickly. The words had barely left the hunt leader's lips when one of the distant riders wheeled his mount and charged, not towards them, but towards the hidden location of their people. Curse it. They've found the camp. Back now? If they're enemies, we fight to the last man. The dozen or so men hoisted the freshly killed goats onto their shoulders and, barefoot, sprinted back with frantic haste. Upstream, in a small grove, their tribe was resting. Women and youths waded in the knee-deep shallows, netting fish and shrimp, while younger children foraged in the undergrowth, digging for edible roots and wild berries. Just then, a woman catching fish screamed, "Look, there's a person over there, riding a beast." Every head snapped around in unison. It was true. A lone figure atop a tall beast was galloping towards them, the thud of its 4 hooves a drumbeat against the earth. Farther in the distance, their own hunting party was also running for their lives. "Grab your spears. Huddle together. Protect the women and children." An old man, the tribe's elder, commanded loudly. The elder's commanding voice cut through the rising panic, steadying their nerves. They quickly formed a protective circle, shielding the women and children in the middle, their eyes fixed warily on the approaching stranger. The Jinwu Guard scout halted 100 meters away. He made no move to approach, instead pacing his mount back and forth, occasionally lifting a strange tube to his eye before glancing over his shoulder. A knot of dread tightened in the elder's stomach. This was bad. This man was waiting for his companions. How many were there? Were they all riding such beasts? As the elder wrestled with his uncertainty, the hunting party finally made it back. Elder, we're being pursued. They're all riding beasts. And behind them, there are several large things being pulled by other beasts. The words had just left his mouth when Moxion's convoy slowly came into view. What is that? The elder's eyes widened with a mixture of vigilance and curiosity. Why aren't they carrying weapons? When the two groups were only 50 meters apart, the leading platoon leader in silver armor raised a hand, and the procession halted. Stay alert. I'm going to parley. The platoon leader, Ying, dismounted. Leading his horse with one hand, the other held open and empty, he slowly walked forward. The gesture only deepened the tribespeople's confusion. Halt! Who are you? The hunt leader, Yan, demanded, raising his spear. Although Ying couldn't understand the words, he understood the intent. He stopped at once, gesturing with his hands while speaking in a language they couldn't comprehend. Friends, do not be alarmed. We mean you no harm. We only wish to borrow a light.